Welcome, Mervyn. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Awesome. I know you might not have had a long weekend like us, so I'm sorry for that, but hopefully you're joining us and you feel refreshed and excited for the week.
That's okay. That's okay. I had a long weekend the weekend before over here, so
Ah,
I feel fine and refreshed and ready and waiting.
okay, perfect. Well, you might have just heard our conversation a little bit about sick days, and I know that you saw the post that I posted on
I did.
LinkedIn. All right. So I first off, I just want to ask you, what's your response to that post?
Um, right. We've agreed. This is our fourth segment. I think we always seem to agree, although we're
Yeah.
we're X and Z. For once, I suppose I'm going to disagree in that nobody owes you a sick day.
Hmm.
I mean, sick days are, there because if you are unwell and unable to come to work, then years ago they were taking out your leave. So I mean, if you wanted to go sick, I mean, before my time even, if you were going sick, it would come out your annual leave. Um, so I mean, we're a bit better than that, but nobody owes you a sick day. If you're sick and unable to physically do your job and unable to concentrate. And we're talking primarily about people doing kind of knowledge work or wisdom work, I think we call it now. So you can sit at home in front of a laptop like I'm doing with you at the moment, and you can still do things. But yeah, I mean, it should be for people who are ill. It's not a right to have a few days off because you've had a busy weekend and you just don't feel like work on a Monday and take it
Hmm.
as a sick day. I mean, people do, obviously, but I mean, it's kind of it's I don't think anybody owes you a sick day.
Right. To your point of people do, right? And I think that that was the intention of my post partly was to say like these are all the ways I believe people are taking sick days. And not to necessarily say like, oh, I think that this is how you should take a sick day. But it is to have that like radical transparency to say, well, this is how Gen Z is taking sick days. And the reason why, which I didn't necessarily get to, and I think I'll unpack in my next newsletter, is that the trust between the employer and the employee, specifically for the youngest generation, you have a generation that has graduated into the pandemic. They have, myself included, they have arrived to a in a situation that they didn't expect, that where the expectations of work were so radically different. They logged onto a computer instead of walking in for their first day. Plus, there's this mental health crisis that's happening. And I think that they also are living within a system where they're encountering massive amounts of debt only to graduate and for half of them not to have a full-time job or an offer. And the in-office experience that some of them might be encountering is not living up to the expectations, and they're being told to go to work and then they're sitting on Zoom. And so I think that like, you know, the, the trust is not there. And that's why I spoke in my last newsletter about how do you unlock the Simone Biles in Gen Z? How do you
Yeah.
build the trust between yourself and your Gen Z employee if you're noticing that they might be quiet quitting or they might be, not be engaged? But yeah, what do you think about that? Do you think it's, trust has anything to do with this?
Well, I mean, trust is always important. I mean, trust in the workplace between employer employee, or yeah, on whatever basis you are contracted, between co-workers, co-fractional workers, and so they're always within an organisation that there needs to be trust. Um, I think that you probably now there is trust. So if you were to phone somebody tomorrow morning and say, "Look, I really feel quite sick today, and I've been up half the night, and I don't think there's much point coming into work today. I'll see what I can do maybe later from the laptop, but I think we'll just yeah, mark me as sick today. Um, I think that people that have no reason to trust you unless you do it on a Monday after I don't know, after you've been on socials having a busy weekend, or it's kind of the trust is there, but I suspect for some in the management and directorship level, that trust might get a bit broken if it's kind of being abused.
Hmm.
um, and I mean, just ring up and say, look, I'm not going to do any work today. I just feel my head's frazzled and stuff, and I'll try and make it up. I mean, I for about the fourth chat running, I say, when I started in the world of work, no, I did. I followed my football team, my soccer team, all over the country. That was a big thing I did when I was younger, and so I would often have to leave work at 2, 3 in the afternoon to get to Manchester or something. But I had an arrangement where they would let me do things like that, but I made that time up. So I was
Hmm.
obviously a trainee accountant. So my time was managed slightly differently to if I was doing something, I suppose, more creative. Um, and so it was kind of I would stay extra hours, or some days I would work another couple of hours or so to make that time up. But there was trust that I wasn't abusing it, and in fact,
Hmm.
I got on well with my direct main boss. And a couple of times he said, "You know what? You only took an hour or two off. Don't worry about it." But that, I think, was earned by the fact that at no stage did he think I was shortchanging him. And I'm not saying that Gen Z are shortchanging their bosses, but what I'm saying is, if what you're saying is, look, I just don't feel it today. I'm not ill. I just, I'm tired after the weekend. I'm really just, I need a day or two to just refocus my where I am and stuff. Then I think if you're honest about that, because
Yeah.
I think you are allowed to be sick. I mean, presumably, um, if you are genuinely sick, you do have time off. You are allowed to phone in, say I'm sick. I've got a virus. I've got a whatever. Um, I realize that remote, flexible, hybrid working changes that slightly because there are things you can probably still do from home. But then that becomes to the mental capacity. Look, I'm not in a space to really focus and concentrate. But I think that there has to be honesty, and if there's honesty, and that trust is earned by honesty.
Right. It's interesting though, because in the situation where you're talking about, right? If you have a boss where you come to them and you say, "Hey, I'm just not feeling it today," and not in a way of like, "Oh, I just don't feel like working." It's more like what you said, right? Like, I just really feel like I have so much going on in my personal life, my work life, and I really just feel like I could use a day. There are companies that are creating those mental health days,
Mm,
but many companies aren't. And and that trust that you talk about, it has to start from the top. It has to start with leadership. It's not just like I can show up to any job and feel like I have the ability to trust anyone. Trust is earned, right? It's not a right.
yeah,
And I feel that as though we're not teaching leaders enough how to build that trust and how to show up in a way where people feel like they can be safe and be seen as a full person, because there's still this sort of, what's the word,
yeah,
like an assumption that you're just there to be a cog in a wheel, and I don't need to know what's going on outside of your life. You're here to do the work. You do the work, and that's it. And I've spoken just this weekend at adult summer camp to a manager, a business owner, very successful business owner, and she said to me, the thing that has never worked when I've had people work for me, when I hire, has it's never been the case that it works if I say to someone, just do the work. I don't want the other ideas. And even if it's not said, if it's implied, the thing that always works is if I treat this work dynamic as a partnership, and if I welcome their ideas, and if I ask them for their opinions. And in my opinion, in my humble opinion as a Gen Zer who has been in a toxic work environment, who has been in a very healthy one, the main difference between the two has been me feeling valued and appreciated, and like my ideas are welcomed, which in turn allowed me and enabled me to be honest when I wasn't feeling okay, and to
Yeah.
have a space, as a safe space, the psychological safety to come to my boss and have that type of relationship. But to, I really think it does come back to the leadership.
It needs to be earned. Also, it's maybe this is an HR issue. I don't know, or maybe HR can set not the ground rules, but I mean the framework. You've referenced your newsletter. I had a newsletter published 2 hours ago, supporting others while supporting yourself. The emotional toll of HR work. Um, and there's quite a bit about mental health and support in there, and for HR itself as well as what it has to or make available, I suppose, for their people. So I think that you should be able to have an honest conversation with them.
Mm-hmm.
If there is a line manager that doesn't want to go through HR and just wants to talk to you directly, I suppose some of it is about earning trust, and I accept the point you're making. Trust is two ways. You have to trust them, but you have to know that they trust you. And what's probably changed, as again, we're talking from slightly, also we're supposed to be talking from slightly generational lens, is that probably when I started work, I wasn't trusted till I proved I could be trusted.
Mm.
Whereas you're probably coming to the workforce saying, look, I'm trustworthy, you can trust me. And it then changes if people, I suppose, or managers or whatever feel they can't trust you. So you're not coming
Mm-hmm.
in from the beginning to earn trust, you're coming in with trust, and it's yours to lose effectively. Whereas I
Mm.
suppose years ago for Gen X and even before that, it's kind of there was no trust. You had to earn it from the start.
Right.
For people to be able to think, you know what, I'm happy to give them leeway, I'm happy to give them latitude.
Right.
If he's really struggling at the moment, then no, give him a day off. I'd
Right.
rather I'd rather him refreshed than coming in and not being able to operate. So I
Right.
suppose that there is a fine line. I just kind of phoning in sick when there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. It's just you're tired or something because you've been
Right.
partying for 48 hours over the weekend. You need to be a bit honest about that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And don't
That's
say
fair.
I've got this virus and it's a 24-hour virus. I was
Yeah. Yeah.
rushed to hospital this morning and they said it's okay, go home and sleep for 24
Yeah.
hours or something.
Yeah.
It, it's all about trust, and the
Yeah.
workplace, a lot relies on trust. So
Yeah.
I don't think taking days off when you don't feel like it is it's not a right as such, but it's something that can be earned, providing it's not abused.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have to wrap up, but I do want to say this final thing is that if I'm hired and I go through an extensive interview process, much more interviews, I will add, than we've ever had before in the hiring
Yeah,
process, I want to be trusted to do the job and to show up and to do it in some regards my way, right? Because I am the professional, I am the expert in whatever I do. And I feel as though there has to be a marriage and a balance of those two perspectives. So thank you so much, Mervyn, for joining
before
us this
before
morning.
you
Yeah.
before you cut me off, can I just say,
Yeah.
obviously, increasingly, you're going to want to get that trust from AI, from a chatbot, from
Mm,
you know, um, and so we might be entering a different era in terms of giving trust and earning trust.
right. That's interesting. Let's dive deeper into that one for sure in the future.
Next time, yes.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much for joining. We'll see you again
It's
soon.
been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes.